Hey people, it's Niall talking. Now I've titled this Death Royalties the Myrtle Plantation, and you'll see why in a bit. So this is from Medium.com. The history and haunting of the Myrtles Plantation, named one of the most haunted houses in America. General David Bradford, original owner and architect. The original owner and architect of the Myrtles Plantation was General David Bradford. Bradford was a successful lawyer, businessman, and deputy attorney general in Washington County, Pennsylvania. Bradford lived in a small stone house, but when he married and had children, he needed more space. Bradford built an exquisite large home. Not long after he finished building the home, he would flee to save his life from his government. The house he fled from is now a national landmark museum. Bradford was involved in leading the Whiskey Rebellion. George Washington placed a price on his head for his role in the affair. In 1796, Bradford left his family safely in Pittsburgh. He then traveled the Ohio River to the Mississippi River. When he arrived in Bayou Sara near what is now St. Francisville, he purchased 600 acres of land. He built an 8-bedroom house on the property and named it Laurel Ridge. In 1799, the new president, John Adams, pardoned Bradford. He then brought his family to his new home in Louisiana. John Adams was appreciative of Bradford establishing Ellicott's line that created a boundary between Spain and the United States. Bradford would sometimes take in law students. One of these students was Clark Woodruff. Clark became an attorney and married Bradford's daughter, Sarah. Clark, born in Connecticut in 1791, left home when he was 19 years old. In 1810, he arrived in Bayou Sara. Citizens in the parish revolted and overruled the Spanish government. They set up new territory they called St. Francisville. In 1814, Clark fought in the Battle of New Orleans with Andrew Jackson. When the War of 1812 ended, Clark returned to St. Francisville and now wanted to study law. November 18, 1817, Clark and Sarah married. They honeymooned at Andrew Jackson's home, the Hermitage. General David Bradford died in 1808. Clark and Sarah moved into Laurel Ridge to help Elizabeth manage the home. Clark expanded the holdings of the plantation and planted about 650 acres of indigo and cotton. Clark and Sarah had 3 children. On July 21, 1823, Sarah died from yellow fever. Clark continued to manage the home and with the help of Elizabeth, care for his children. July 15, 1824, his son James died from yellow fever, and in September, it also took his daughter Cornelia. Clark bought the home from Elizabeth. Elizabeth died at Laurel Grove in 1830. After Elizabeth died, Clark and his daughter Octavia moved. A caretaker managed the plantation. Clark was appointed as a judge in District D in Covington and remained in that position until 1834. In 1835, Clark was living on Rampart Street in New Orleans and was elected president of Public Works. Octavia went to finishing school in New Haven, Connecticut. In 1836, Octavia moved back in with Clark. In 1838, Octavia married Colonel Lorenzo Augustus Ben Sancon. They moved to his plantation, Oak Lawn. In 1840, the governor appointed Clark to Auditor of Public Works. He was there for a year, then retired. He moved in with Octavia and Lorenzo at Oak Lawn. He was 60 years old. Clark died in 1851 and was buried at the Girard Street Cemetery in New Orleans. The myth of Chloe, a house slave, is perpetuated still to this day by tour guides at Myrtles Plantation. The story is that Clark was having sex with Chloe. Chloe was afraid she would be sent to the fields either because she lost favor with Clark or because the children were getting older, they would no longer need her to care for them. Chloe would eavesdrop on Clark and Sarah. When she was caught, her punishment was to have her ear removed. She would wear a turban to hide her scar. And also, where they said having sex, again, by any legal definition, there is no such thing as consent where a person cannot say no. So that's rape. Chloe then baked one of the children's birthday cakes with oleander. She wanted to make the children and mom ill so they would need her, and when she helped them recover, they would be grateful to her. Another version says she did this for revenge. For some reason, Clark was the only one that did not eat the cake. Sarah and 2 of the children died from the poison. The other slaves would not help Chloe escape. Afraid of the wrath her actions may place on them, they hung her from a tree on the property. When Sarah and the children died, all the mirrors were covered so they would not get trapped. Yet they forgot to include one of the mirrors, and Sarah and her 2 daughters were trapped. Never heard of that myth, but alright. In Ruth Gray Sterling, in 1834, Clark sold Laurel Ridge to Ruffin Gray Sterling. Even though the Sterlings owned several plantations, Ruffin and his wife Mary lived at Laurel Ridge. They expanded and remodeled the home. When completed in 1850, the house was double its original size. They changed the name to the Myrtles. Ruffin died in 1854 from tuberculosis. Mary successfully managed all the plantations, but more tragedy ensued for Mary. Only 4 of her 9 children lived long enough to marry. The oldest child, Louis, also died in 1854. Marion Ruffin's daughter, Sarah, had married William Drew Winter in 1852. After the war, Mary employed Winter to help with the plantation land and be her agent and attorney. She gave them the home in 1865. In 1871, William was shot on the porch of the Myrtles. Sarah remained at the Myrtles with her mother and brothers until she died in 1878. According to the tour guide at Myrtles Plantation, when Winters was shot on the porch, he crawled back inside and died on the 17th step. Some have seen streaks in pictures of the stairs where William Drew Winter died. They believe it is Winter's blood. The blood can be seen even when the stairs are cleaned and carpet replaced, but Winter never crawled back inside. He died on the porch. The tour guide will show you the mirror and explain that people have seen a face, children's fingerprints, and claw marks. They explain that the face is Sarah and the children are hers. The claw marks are from Sarah trying to get out of the mirror. These images are seen in any mirror placed in the exact spot as the original mirror. The home is on their third mirror. In 1975, the owner of Plantation reported they were almost killed when the mirror flew 20 feet off the wall, hitting his head. Chloe as a ghost. People have claimed to see a ghost wearing a turban. Most agree it is Chloe, yet there is no record that Chloe ever existed. There are detailed records from the time of a list of slaves. There is no Chloe and not even a similar name. In 1992, Myrtle Plantation took a photograph for fire insurance purposes. The insurance company wanted a picture that showed the distance between the two buildings. They were rejected for the insurance because they were asked to send in photos with no people. They had taken pictures of just the buildings and believed the image is the picture of Chloe. They sent the negatives to the National Geographic Explorer filming crew. They determined that the photograph definitely contained what appeared to be an apparition of what they believed to be a slave girl. The slave girl appeared in the breezeway between the general store and the butler's pantry of the mansion. The horizontal exterior bands of the mansion were clearly visible through the body of the apparition. National Geographic Explorer used the photograph in their documentary and suggested a postcard should be made of the photograph. Mr. Norman Benoit, a patent researcher, visited the Myrtle Plantation in May 1995 and requested permission to research the postcard. After enlarging the postcard and doing a shadow density procedure, Mr. Benoit discovered that all of the physical measurements of the apparition were of human dimensions and proportions. The circumference of the head, the length of the shoulder to the elbow, and the length of the elbow to the wrist were all indicative of a human. No one is quite sure when the stories of Chloe originated. According to AmericanHauntings.com, HauntingsInc.com, in the 1950s there were mention of a ghost. The ghost was an older woman wearing a green bonnet. In the 1970s, the home was under new owners, James and Kermine Myers, and turned into a bed and breakfast. The ghost backstories were aggrandized into the myths that are told today. Even though the history of the ghost may not be true, many skeptics and believers alike have reported seeing, hearing, and feeling things that cannot be explained. The house appeared in Life, November 1980, in a list of the most haunted places in America. This article included the tale of Chloe. Reports of mysterious occurrences have been reported since at least the 1950s, according to the grandchild of one of the owners. There is documentation of the home being haunted in yet another iteration of the woman in the green turban in June 8, 1977 edition of the Evening Standard. The article states that AAA learned that in 1825 a French governess was hired by the owner to care for his only daughter. The governess had been badly mistreated in her previous job. Both of her ears had been cut off. Also, her only child was taken from her and she never knew what became of it. Now she is said to roam the upstairs of the Myrtles Plantation. She may have been peering into the face of sleeping guests, presumably still looking for her lost child. While this could not be verified, the year quoted would have been a year after Clark Woodruff's side, Sarah, and his two children died of yellow fever, leaving Clark living with his daughter Octavia and his mother-in-law. I remember reading the diary of Solomon Northrop, and they talked about this, that one of the house slave women had an affair with the slave owner in the hopes that they would protect her daughter, but the owner sold it anyway. And I think the child might have been the slave owner's child as well. So this is another thing I want to say. When people keep talking about these interracial relationships, it doesn't change the fact that a lot of these, if they're racist, they just don't care what is their child or not. Owners and guests have reported random footsteps on the stairs, lights turning on and off, hearing cries from children, doorknobs rattling, an apparition of a lady with a green turban. Guests have reported being woken by the same lady. These are the reports of the piano playing itself. The staff has witnessed spirits and as a result does not return. While a television show was being partly filmed at the home, they moved the furniture into another room. The furniture was all put back in place when they returned. This happened more than once. We can believe witness reports that the home is in fact haunted, or it has been one of the most successful marketing campaigns. Maybe a little of both. So anyway, I used the title Death Royalties for a reason. Now, I've made posts about the term Death Royalties. You know, I said about Harper Lee and To Kill a Mockingbird making a book about illegal lynching and making millions and her reputation of it. This is another example. This is a plantation founded and built and run by black people and their slavery and their oppression. And that story about them having sex, basically when he was raping her, that is just the tip of the iceberg. God only knows what other horrors happened on that plantation that were never spoken of or written down. So it's no wonder. Now, I brought this attention because I thought there's lots of black people who talk about buying back the property and buying the block. And I know I have followers in Louisiana, so this is something that you could do. Because the Myrtles plantation, from the research I've done, is still owned by white people, so they are profiting off of the deaths of black people and using it as a marketing tool. Come see the ghosts of the enslaved victims at this house of horrors. So if you have the money, or if you're looking for a business venture, perhaps this is something for you. So any black man or even a black family to buy it and rent it out would be a good way to take back this history and make generational wealth and stop the abuse of black people's legacy. So anyway, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. If you'd like to support this channel, I'll leave my cash app. If you want to follow me on Instagram, I'll leave it there as well. If you want to buy one of my t-shirts, I'll leave it there as well. Peace.